oh my word, what an end to that game. What an James Trafford. They didn't concede a goal as well.
I know. It's truly brilliant, isn't it?
Out of interest, because James Trafford's been linked with a move to Burnley.
Yeah, Chelsea should be in for him.
Do you think?
Yeah, Chelsea should be in for him.
So, because, well, what I was going to ask you was, do you think it's too early for him to be a Premier League number one?
Not really. No, I don't. Look, I think when players are that young, I think you really have to protect them. You have to look after them. You have to nurture them, particularly as a goalkeeper. Like when you think about when the peak years for a goalkeeper will probably be, a young goalkeeper.
It's a bit later, isn't it?
And also what you really don't want to do is rush it and ruin it.
Yeah.
You know, which I think can be done.
Because that's, well, actually, good example of that last season, Gavin Bazunu.
Yeah.
For Southampton.
Exactly.
Who you could tell, do you know what, I felt a bit bad for him because one, he was in that awful team.
Yeah.
Such a bad defence.
Yeah.
He had so much to do, but you could tell there's a good keeper there.
Yeah, totally.
There is a good keeper there.
Totally.
But he was just in the Premier League and it was too soon.
Do you know what, though? I do also subscribe to the theory of, look, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I think that sometimes, look, you need to nurture these players. You can't rush youngsters. You can't put full faith in them. They're still developing. Like, their bodies are still developing. They're still growing a lot of the time. Yeah. So I do think you have to be careful, but equally...
So you would take him at Chelsea?
Well, it would be very disingenuous of me to say I think that you should be really patient with James Trafford when I am banging a drum for anyone to listen that Levi Colwill needs to start for Chelsea next season. The two things don't marry up, do they? If I were to say to you now, I don't think that Trafford should play Premier League football, it makes no sense because I'm saying Levi Colwill should. And
is he first name on the team sheet territory, Colwill, for you?
What I think needs to happen with Chelsea is we've got a real issue at centre half, haven't we? There's a lot going on at centre half. We've now got a manager that is keen to play two. Like we're going to play two rather than three. And I think we've got 5 at the club already. We're in Colwill in it's 6. We've got no European football, so there's a finite amount of games to go around, and it's not very many. So 6.5 is too many, and we need to offload some. But for me, whatever the answer to this problem, whatever you decide it is, whatever the club decide it is, the answer is never allow Levi Colwill to leave. So that is off the table. Levi Colwill must be a Chelsea player next season. At Chelsea as well, not on loan. He must be at Chelsea playing games. In terms of how you juggle it...
How many games, though?
Well, I think he should be our starter. I think he's a better player than Benoit Badiashile.
So who would you have, Colwill and...
Thiago Silva? I think
that would work, wouldn't it, as well? You'd have that experienced head.
The other thing, Ollie, I don't quite know why this is the case, but why can't you, and I'm prepared to be wrong on this front, because everybody tells me that you can't have 2 left-footed centre-halves.
I'm so in your camp as well. I don't get it. Why
but
not?
there must be there is a thing, isn't there?
About it,
yeah. You don't have 2.
If you're on the right-hand side of the pitch, it's more naturally going to come down to your right. I don't know.
Yeah, but equally, you can have 2. You can have 2 right-footers,
but not 2 left.
Yeah. So I think that potentially our best 2 is Thiago Silva's the best defender at the club, but he's 39 years old. So
what
we
about
have
Fofana?
I haven't been too impressed with him, Ollie.
Well, he's had long spells out, though, hasn't he?
Long spells out, but let's just judge him on when he plays. Then, it's very difficult to factor in the injury record and stuff like that, because if you start giving him the leniency on that, then I have to be far more lenient to Christian Pulisic. Basically, we should just judge players on what we've seen, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
And I think Fofana's been all right at times. I think he's been fairly average at times.
But you're saying Colwill ahead of him?
I think Colwill and Thiago Silva are the 2 best defenders at the club, but I'm also aware that Thiago Silva is pushing 40.
Yeah.
And therefore there is, a shelf life to this partnership.
But it's something that we've seen work as well. I mean, it's a less extreme example in a way, but even at Newcastle United last season, they had Trippier on the right, who's early 30s, I think, late 20s, and then you had Sven Botman, who's I think 22, Shares 31, and then Dan Burn, another experienced head, and they didn't carry Botman through. He was magnificent. He was very good, but you could tell at times that they just had that experience to say, "Oi, Sven."
No, it's a great education as well.
Yeah.
Like for the development path that Levi Colwill is on, Levi Colwill will be a better player if you throw him in the deep end today and allow him to learn from Thiago Silva, just as John Terry became a better player because he had the season with Marcel Desailly.
Yes.
Just as Gary Cahill became a better player because he had the season with John Terry. Like you can learn and develop, and you may take a risk, you may concede some goals, but I do think that the best partnership would be Silva Colwill. And then I think the future partnership, if you can have 2 left footers, is Badiashile Colwill.
Yeah. By the way, didn't Terry learn to use his weaker foot?
It's
something amazing.
Do you know one of the narratives in football that drives me mad? Like, some things they're said so often that they become true,
yeah,
and they weren't. Like, you know, this whole thing about Rio Ferdinand was the cultured centre-half. He was the one who made it look easy. And John Terry was the last-ditch defender, last-ditch sliding tackle, robust, rugged, but not particularly good on the ball. It's like a complete myth. It's a complete myth. Like, John Terry on the ball is the best ball-playing centre-half I've ever seen. Like, John Terry would start our attacks. The vast majority of our attacks, when Terry was in the team, would be John Terry pinging a ball 70 yards with his weaker foot into the path of Ashley Cole, who'd link up with Florent Malouda, and ultimately the ball's in the back of the net because of Didier Drogba and Frank Lampard. But it would start with John Terry starting the attacks with his weaker foot, spraying the ball either way.
Yeah.
So...
the glory days, Rory? The glory days.